of Iron. I'm Jon Andersen. Meet my co-hosts, Nick Best and Akim Williams. We're going to have some amazing guests on the show. Buckle up tight, because we're going to be talking about the shit you're not supposed to be talking about. We're going to be discussing anything and everything it takes to become a Legend of Iron. Legends of Iron is brought to you by MuscleMeds. MuscleMeds is the creator of Carnivore Pure Beef Protein Isolate. Beef builds muscle, and Carnivore is the world's #1 selling beef protein. Welcome to another edition of Legends of Iron. I'm Jon Andersen. With me always my partner in crime, Nick Best and Akim Williams, who can't be here today, but we have got a rockin' guest for you. This guy is really something else. He's achieved so much in the industry, and I got to say, I'm very proud to call him my friend. Mark Bell, welcome to the show. What's going down, my brother?
Thank you, guys. I'm excited, man. I'm curious to see what you want to talk to me about, because you've been pestering me for a while.
Yes. Well, I'll tell you, you're one of those guys where we're going to have to kind of we could have multiple shows with you, so we're going to have to just try to keep on one topic, because we could spread ourselves too thin really quickly, and we want to make sure that we're courteous of your time and get it out of here before the weekends.
Yeah, but Jon, can you do that?
I don't know. I'm going to try. Mark, you. So bottom line is, brother, one of the things that I love about you, way back when we met, God, I'm trying to think. It would have been 2000, maybe 6 or something like that. Way back when, and you were just starting off with your whole slingshot project, and now it is just, it's a worldwide explosion. I remember you sent me one of the early ones. Well, I guess, forgive the term prototype, but it didn't have the logo on it. You sent it out to me and said, "Hey, give this a try. What do you think?" And it was pretty amazing and really ahead of its time. A lot of people, I don't think, even understood how helpful it would be once they started to understand it. So, brother, tell us about how did that whole thing come about?
Yeah, the facility I'm in right now, we're in a 20,000 square foot headquarters of Slingshot, and it has my gym, Super Training, in it as well. Super Training Gym, by the way, is free because of the products. 855 Riverside Parkway, every Saturday, Sunday. It's open gym to anybody that wants to come in here. I think people always think there's strings attached, but the gym is actually free from 9 until 1 p.m. The whole thing came about just for me, just thinking about lifting my whole life. From the time I was 12, basically started lifting, and just something I became obsessed with. And my dad actually put it to me this way. He said, while people were maybe thinking about what they were going to do for the day and what job they were going to pursue and what career they were going to do, pretty much day in and day out, for whatever reason, you were thinking about lifting, whether you're in the shower, whether you're taking a shit, or whether you're watching a movie, whether you're with somebody else, you're in a relationship, maybe even in the middle of sex, you're like, I wonder what would happen if I did 3 sets of 3 instead of 3 sets of 3. And so my mind was always honed in and focused on trying to figure out, how to optimize things. And then obviously, just like the both of you, I ended up running right into some really horrific injuries, a couple pec tears, 3 pec tears in. And that's when I created the Slingshot. It was out of necessity, because I heard so many guys that were in their 40s and 50s, and they would say, "Oh man, I used to bench like you. I used to bench 3 plates. I used to bench 4 plates." And I was always like, why are these old guys always say they used to do this, they used to do that? Why the fuck can't they still do it? I didn't get it because I was young. As I got older and ran into some injuries with some probably not such smart training decisions, I did end up tearing a pec a couple times, and the third time that I tore my pec, I just sat on a bench one day and just tried to figure it out. I was wearing a bench press shirt that was really big. The bench shirt is a compressive item that allows you to handle more weight for bench pressing, and they hurt and they're expensive. They like pinch your skin and stuff. And I was like,
zero fun to put on.
Yeah, zero fun to put on. I was like, this will never be like a consumer product, but can you make a weight belt for the upper body, like a lifting belt for the upper body? And I just kept playing around with it. Eventually sewed 2 knee wraps together, that go over your arms and spot you from the elbows, just like someone would spot you from the elbows on like an incline dumbbell press. And then just kind of figured out how to manufacture them, and the rest is history.
Well, one thing you said right there that I'm very glad you said out loud, and the fact that you actually think about stuff like this during sex, that makes me feel not alone. And then,
I wonder if my wife realizes how
times
strong these triceps are.
how many times has that happened to you? I got to know, because I got to know if I'm like a complete loner, or is it just a few times or lots, you know?
Almost every time.
Well,
Oh, you guys are by yourself.
Thank God. I'm not alone.
I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I should do some glute bridges. I mean, it wouldn't hurt, you know, for when underneath it all, you know?
That's exactly right. Oh, I love it. So that was the inception of the slingshot. Many nights of sex, as you conjured up the idea, and obviously it came to fruition. And obviously, then here's the original invention. I mean, now we know how big it is, but you know, truly, I mean, it's all over the world now. I mean, major sports teams use it. I mean, forgive me when I say this, but try to suck your own dick here, brother. Tell us how great that invention really is, because it's amazing.
You know, I still think that it has, and I've kind of said this since the time I created it, which was about 12 or 15 years ago or so. I've always said I have to die for people to like understand how cool this thing is. When I'm dead, they'll be like, that guy was right, man. He wasn't half bad. But
let's not do that.
You know, yeah, while I'm here, I think people still want to like fight and argue over stuff. But you know, you got Odell Beckham Jr., you know, using it. There's been advertisements with The Rock using the slingshot and using the hip circle and using some of the various products I created. The hip circle too is also a creation of mine. You did see rubber bands that people were putting around their legs and stuff like that from years ago. But the specifics of an actual hip circle product that you saw so many other people bring to the market as well later on was also created by me. So I don't know. I like being creative. I like being inventive. And when I made the slingshot, like when I actually created it, I actually had it sewn together by my wife's friend who sews together swimsuits. And she brought it to me at a Starbucks, and I ran inside this local commercial gym to try the slingshot on for the first time and try it out and give it a go. And I did 135, and obviously that was really easy and felt flawless. And then I tried 2 plates and did a couple reps with it. And I was like, holy shit, this is exactly what has been in my brain for the last several years. And I was just covered head to toe in goosebumps because I realized that I created something awesome. And then from there, it's a matter of like, well, it doesn't matter how good your product is. What matters is the ability to like get that thing out there and to show people. And so I started spreading it out there to people. And I'm like, you know what? I think a lot of lifters will understand this. They'll get it. Especially because so many lifters are into wrist wraps and knee sleeves, and even further than just a knee sleeve or a wrist wrap, they're into like a particular wrist wrap. They're like, I need that wrist wrap, especially getting a strongman. I need that wrist wrap for that particular movement. That one's going to benefit me. So I knew that lifters would understand it, but I also wanted to bring it to athletes because I don't think a bench press is that safe of an exercise. Really, when you look at bench, squat, deadlift, a lot of the choices you make, like a lot of exercises are, you know, you can make arguments for strongman movements. They make actually more sense, look more dangerous, like stone loading and things like that, but they make more sense. Like we can have a discussion and say, I could see like where that's useful in like day to day or in years ago. We didn't have the machines to pick these things up, but a bench press is ludicrous. Both arms pinned back behind the midline of your body with oftentimes double and triple your body weight. It's completely ridiculous and absurd, and there's not really a great reason for it. And so in just considering the dynamics of a bench press and creating the slingshot, what it does is allows you to go through a full range of motion when you're in the most compromised position with both your elbows pinned back behind the midline of your body. The slingshot stretches the most and gives you the most assistance. So it gives you the most assistance in the least advantageous position. And as you go to push through the range of motion, you're in a more favorable position and it does less and less for you. So it really helps to kind of absorb the strength curve and absorb some of the quote unquote retardedness of a bench press.
Well, and
Yeah.
you're a person that you have obviously a very deep powerlifting background. You've been lifting weights your whole life,
Hmm.
so a person who actually understands the movements, understands the challenges, making the actual creation, the equipment, very different than some big blockbuster equipment company that hires some engineer to try to put something together that they think is going to work. I mean, your creation
Hmm.
is designed from the roots of the movement, people that are in the trench. And I think that's one of the reasons why all your stuff is so successful, because it's not just, what's being floating around out there, what's being heard. It's what needs to be done, and you create this stuff based around the necessary needs, and that's
Give
why
you,
it's. I mean, even like
give you,
your remember when you came out with your gangster apps? Holy
yeah.
smokes, those things were
Hmm.
like you put one of those things on and you felt like somebody fused your wrist. It was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
Give you a couple examples of like kind of what these pieces of equipment can do for you, and in particular something like a slingshot. I mean, a slingshot is very akin to a belt. In strongman, sometimes people wear multiple belts. They'll put
Hmm.
that belt underneath. That's mainly a stretchy type material, and it doesn't have a lot of strength or stiffness to it. And then they'll put on a regular lifting belt over top of the neoprene belt, and now you
Hmm.
have like some nice compression, but you also kind of like in some ways increase the circumference of your waist, which a lot of strongman guys already have a waist, and that's going to help create more strength. But even something like an elbow sleeve is going to act as like extra muscle in a way, because you have the elbow sleeve is on your forearm and it's also on your bicep. And your forearm and bicep coincidentally make contact when you do overhead pressing movements, when you do bench pressing. And so they're going to be very supportive of you through those ranges of motion. But very similar to a lifting belt, they're not going to do all of it for you. Some of the strongest guys that we've ever seen, I mean, there's some guys who really don't care that much about a belt, but they're particular about when they do put their belt on, and they won't stray away from it. Some guys don't care to wear a belt unless they're squatting, and some guys only care to wear a belt when they deadlift. However, you can't deny that a belt seems to be an amazing thing to help make you stronger. And same thing with lifting straps. Like
yeah,
if you start to
Hmm.
pull 800 pounds for multiple repetitions with lifting straps, there's always that dork who's like, I can't, you use straps, you cheated, or whatever they want to say. The odds of you being able to pull 825 for a single without straps is really, really high. Whereas if you didn't have that stimulus of pulling that 800 pounds for repetitions with straps and with a belt, you may not have done nearly that amount of weight when you take those things off. And we've seen a slingshot time and time and time again work for, especially with a lot of females that want to be police officers and military, where they have a demand to be able to do a certain amount of push-ups. I think it's something like 20 or 21 push-ups. They start doing their push-up training and they can't do hardly any. So how do we get volume to somebody that can't really do or participate in the exercise? I guess we could have them do planks and hold their own body weight up. Like, that's a pretty good start. We can have them do push-ups off their knees. That's not a bad idea. But if we give them a device that makes the exercise supportive, let's say now they can do 5 repetitions and they can hold their own body weight up for 30 seconds. Well, if you can hold your own body weight up for 30 seconds over a period of time, you're going to be able to crank through 20 reps in under 30 seconds very easily. It takes time, but you'll
yeah,
be able to do it. And I've seen them be able to do it even when they take the slingshot off. And that's the cool part, is you see the
yes,
progression. Doing
yeah,
no push-ups, being able to do 5, 10, 15, 20,
yeah,
and maybe they get to like 40 push-ups in a slingshot, and then they take the slingshot off and they can crank out 20 without them, because they now have been exposed. They've had exposure to this
yeah.
heavier stimulus.
Yeah, there's no
Yeah.
question that the strength of a training tool in the slingshot is undeniable. There's no question. There's way too many. You know, just like you described, one case. There's hundreds and hundreds of cases where people are able to better themselves by the use of that tool. That's
Hmm.
killer. So, so slingshot comes to life, blows up. I can't remember. Forgive me when I say. I want to say maybe 2000 and maybe 12. We were together, and you said to me, And at this point, your company was enormous. You were highly successful, and you had been, doing all sorts of stuff with your companies and this, that, and the other. You said to me, I remember you said, I'm about ready to take over the compression sleeve industry. And out came the strong sleeves, and boom, there was a whole nother ignition, just like the slingshot. So kind of talk to us about how that brainchild came about. Was that one also during sex?
I have I haven't really, like, I honestly, with the things that I've come up with, they've worked pretty well, like right from the get-go. But I did have a problem with knee sleeves. I was working on a pair of knee sleeves for years. Probably almost immediately. Yeah, knee sleeves and elbow sleeves, probably almost immediately after the slingshot came out. Because my thought process was, okay, you made the slingshot and people can now overload their bench press. I'm like, they need wrist wraps to go with the they can overload the bench press. It doesn't make any sense to have that wrist compromise. So let's wrap up the wrist. So
that came up with gangsta.
Yeah, I came up with the gangster wrap. Because we're lifting the gangster wrap when we're lifting, and so me and a friend were kind of joking around, and I'm like, I'm gonna make gangster wraps. I was like, I don't think it makes sense, and it ended up being a huge success. And that was also another creation that had like a small twist on it, but it's just something that people maybe weren't thinking of at the time. The Velcro part has a patch rather than it going continuously. So it's not stiff throughout the whole wrap. And what you can do is you can take a gangster wrap. You can take any of the wraps I have off of markbellslingshot.com. You can take almost every single pair of wraps I have and put them on your wrist, your elbow, your knee. You see Larry Wheels oftentimes wrapping his elbows and handling these crazy benches. I don't know how that guy still is able to lift so much weight. I think maybe he's made some shifts more recently, but you've seen him bench like 625 pounds and shit like that. Unbelievable strength, but having that compression of being able to take something that kind of has like a rubber or elastic to it and wrap it and create like a cast for the wrist is a really powerful thing. To be able to kind of do something similar for the elbow, do something similar for the knee, feels amazing. And when you have a knee or elbow sleeve on, if you put that on over top, then you even have more compression. Sometimes not the desired result because your arm feels like it's going to fall asleep, or if you're doing overhead presses, you can't quite get in like a rack position. So there are
can't feel your hands anymore.
It doesn't matter if you can't get into a rack position anyway. So the tighter ones, we can only do this. The tighter ones are great because can't rack it anyway. So it's just straight overhead up.
And that's a good point. You actually do get a lot of leverage out of being tight, right? So
for sure.
You were kind of joking about it, but like the fact that a rack position is tough for you is probably what made you such a great overhead presser, because there's a lot of launching power in there. You have 300 pounds, 400 pounds. That's enough to just push you down just a bit to load that spring. But you're also not an Olympic lifter, and your body's not like flimsy by any means. It's rigid, and you're able to really press through. But back to the sleeves, I had this idea for sleeves for a long time. I made some. It didn't come out great. I tried again. They didn't come out great. And I just shelved it. I was like,
So when you say didn't come out great, explain what was in the early stages, what wasn't great about them. Because we only know the great ones that we've all bought.
Yeah, they weren't good enough. Like at the time, all that was out there was Ray-Ban. SBD didn't come around yet. Ray-Ban was the thing. And if SBD was around, I wasn't aware of them at that time. So Ray-Ban, they had their thing going, but they didn't make any sleeves that were stiff. And I was starting to discover thicker and stiffer sleeves that have a stronger jersey to them. And in making a couple pairs, they like ripped and they just sucked and they weren't great. When you'd put them on, they would like stretch and then they would stay stretched. They wouldn't like conform to your body at all. And so I was just really having a hard time with it. So I shelved it for a little bit. Then SBD comes in and makes a great sleeve. They came in and made a great sleeve. And I'm sitting there with my dick in my hand. Like, oh shit. Like they came out with a great, which was cool. And it forced my hand to like bring out my own stuff. But that was that was a lapse in judgment. Like most of the time I trust my instincts, and most of the time I keep following through. And on that project, I got to admit, I didn't follow through. So SBD did a great job. They made a great product, and they got to the marketplace a little bit earlier. They got their foothold into some strength sports a little earlier when it came to the sleeve game. And so it was a little bit tougher of a challenge for me to come in. But what was cool is they already had a product out that was good. And so I had to figure out a way to compete with them. And so not only did I make the sleeves that I made numerous other types of sleeves, as well as bringing in like different colorways and stuff like that. Cause I realized lifters would probably like not just everything's always black all the time. So I was like, let me throw in some different colors here and there just to kind of brighten things up and change things up a bit.
Somebody needs to make white ones. So that when I'm training out in the heat.
I don't know if I still make them, but yeah, I made some white ones, but they get dirty as fuck.
I don't care if they're dirty. I just don't want them to absorb all that heat from the sun.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
And the best thing about the sleeves is when you don't wash them for a lengthy period of time, the smell that those things can produce. Like when I was wrestling in Japan, I used to wear the compression sleeves under my knee pads. And, you know, Mark, you wrestled, so you understand. A lot of times there's a lot of superstition with not getting hurt when you're out there doing crazy shit. And so I went into this whole thing of, you know, I had a tour and I came home, not a single bumper bruise on me. And I was like, holy shit, I didn't wash my sleeves. So I started not washing my sleeves for whole tours. And so by the time I would, 3 weeks of, you know, wrestling, you know, 3, 4, 5 days a week, oh man, the locker room boys did not like me, you know?
Yeah, I was going to say, they probably hated you because you probably smelled super ripe.
So the sleeves came out. You did knees, you did elbow, you did different variations of thickness. You really filled in all those voids in the market. And the sleeves became equally as successful as the slingshot, huh?
Oh yeah, we started selling sleeves like crazy. It made a huge impact on the business and really helped us grow and expand. And you're dead on with the variations. You know, I don't know. I just been hearing this most of my life. You know, just stuff like this. You know, you can't lift weights all your life. You know, you can't just be a meathead. You can't make money in lifting. Like no one's going to buy stuff in powerlifting. There's no money in powerlifting. There's no money in bodybuilding. There's no money in any of these things. And you hear this stuff and then you kind of scratch your head and you look at how much stuff a seasoned powerlifter, bodybuilder, or strongman guy. I mean, how big of a gym bag does a guy who's 40 years old? How big is that gym bag?
You could put a body in those bags.
Table that I'm at right now. I mean, it's enormous. It's like a giant body bag, and it's got sleeves and baby powder and wrist wraps and nose torque. And so they're consumers.
4 pairs of shoes.
I always felt like that was kind of disrespectful because the people in lifting, they love wearing all this stuff, and they just really weren't catered to. Especially if you go way back, you'll see guys, you know, you'll see Kazmaier with some wrap around his arm, but it's like it wasn't specific to the sport. It's some bullshit like base bandage that he probably got like from a pharmacy or something like that. So I was very proud to be able to make something that I felt, you know, was made by a lifter for lifters. And then in talking to lifters, sometimes they were like, man, I like those sleeves, but they take me way too long to get them on. I wish there was a sleeve that was a little stretchier, that was a little easier to get on, because I don't lift as heavy anymore. I don't lift as heavy with those particular movements. And so I was like, oh, I need to look into this. And so I would make sleeves that were 5 millimeter or 3 millimeter rather than 7 or 9 millimeter. And then in terms of neoprene, there's just something on the outside that's called a jersey, and you can put the sleeve to any kind of jersey. And so I even made a product called the X sleeves, which ended up being banned by the IPF a couple years ago. And the X sleeves have denim in them. And so when they banned them, it's a really long story, but basically what happened is I released the product. The IPF agreed to the product. And then when the product hit the market, I think maybe due to money and due to maybe previous sponsors that the IPF may have had, all of a sudden my product was now unapproved, ended up on the unapproved list. So I had to make so what I did was the sleeves that were already out in the market that a bunch of people already bought, I Vince McMahon the whole situation and just got more publicity out of it. Hundreds and hundreds of people went to the site and ordered these sleeves. They're like, this is badass. It's denim that's in the sleeve. And they're thinking it's going to make me spring up more. And they were very compressive, as you can imagine, because denim doesn't have a lot of stretch to it, but it has some. And we really nailed it and made a great product. So what I had to do is I had to figure out a way to get them approved again by the IPF. And it cost me a ton of money. I think all in, it was like $250,000 to get my products approved with the IPF. And so I thought this is like ludicrous. Like, this is so silly. And because I thought it was so silly, I'm like, well, let's make a commercial out of it. And so we did. And I just started throwing money around. I stood in front of a fan and I'm like dumping money everywhere. And I basically said something to the effect of, this is what it cost me to get these things approved. I did it for you guys. I want you guys to be able to use great products in this federation, and anyone that ordered the previous sleeves, I'm going to send these new ones to you that are now officially approved by the IPF so that you can wear these in your next competition. And that blew up great. Like, that was amazing.
Well, brother, one of the things that I've actually texted you before and just said, hey, your generosity inspires me, because you're one of the most generous people that I've ever known. And that's another perfect example of generosity right there. But I want to back up real quick, because we're talking about some major business successes that you've had, which is, I mean, totally amazing. And I've heard you kind of allude to a few things in the process, because ultimately you're highly successful in everything you do. We're talking about business stuff, but talk to us about some of the philosophies that you've been working with becoming so successful. I heard you say something to the fact in the sleeves that, obviously you shelved them, but realistically you need to just keep on going. So clearly consistency and falling on your face and getting back to your feet and keep going is part of the equation. But talk to us. Our listeners are, of course, the show's all about helping them become the best version of themselves. And we're talking about, literally, and I say this with love, a meathead who has become a multimillionaire because of the philosophies he's worked with. So talk to us about some of the things that you really hold close to your heart when it comes to building success.
I think some of the things that I'm going to share here probably won't be novel necessarily, but there's things that I've learned in the last couple of years that I think that probably will be new to people. I'll start off with the basics. I mean, consistency is always, king. And if there's anything remarkable that anyone ever does, you can almost always point to consistency being there in the background. It's rare. Sometimes somebody is a talent. Sometimes somebody's talented and they can start off better than somebody else without a lot of history, sometimes due to genetics and sometimes due to environmental things. But most of the time there's consistency behind it. And what you see in lifting in particular, and probably in life in general, but I've observed this to be true in lifting, is there's a minimum requirement of lifters. And the minimum requirement for lifting is 10 years. That's the bare minimum. Yeah. You can't talk with any one of the three of us unless you've been lifting for 10 years. It's like that's like to get you in the door. And then we're still going to laugh at you and think you're a pussy.
It's a down payment. That's a down payment. That's all it is, Totally agree.
It's a requirement. And all the way to the point where I remember I went to On It Gym in Texas, Austin, Texas years ago, and had the pleasure of meeting Aubrey Marcus and doing a podcast with him. And I was in the gym, and this dad introduced me to his son, and his son was squatting like 800 pounds or something like that. And I think he was like 16. He squat like 755 and stuff. I was like, holy shit.
That's insane.
And I sat there.
That's a lot for that age.
Yeah. I sat there and I was like, and then he did 775 on that day. I just sat on the bench for a second. I said, God damn, that blows away my decade, my 10-year, like, I've been saying this forever. And fuck, man, now I don't, like, has this kid been lifting for 6 years? He's 16. I'm like, He probably hasn't even been lifting for 6 years.
How many years could he have been lifting?
Yeah, because that would put him at 10, if he's been lifting for 6 years. And his dad comes over to me and he goes, it's amazing, isn't it? He's like, it's really cool. He's like, I'm so glad I had him start lifting when he was 6. And I was like, there we go.
There it is. There it is.
It's 10 years.
You're able to get it, sneak it in there again.
Well, it's crazy. As someone started lifting at 6, look at the development just based on the age. And obviously a kid is not so filled with all the things they can't do. The world hasn't told them what they can't do yet. So everything is possible. And clearly that little story pretty much, details out that 100%. I mean, 16 years old, 750, that's insane.
Yeah, it was nuts. And so I've seen it just time and time again. Many different people I've had on my podcast. I have a friend named Ron Penna. He started Quest Nutrition, the Quest bars that you see everywhere. You see them in 7-Eleven and Walmart and Target and everywhere. He sold the company for $1 million and then started another company. So the guy knows what he's doing. But again, it's just a lot of consistency. Like, is this guy unique? Yeah, of course he is. Like, and does he have a story that's maybe a little different than some of our story? Has he dedicated his time? Has he put a lot of time and effort into what it is that he's doing? Of course he has, but he's put like decades into it. And it also falls in line with his interest level. So if you're having a hard time with consistency, in my opinion, it's because you're not that interested, or you're not as interested as you thought you were. So don't mess around with bodybuilding. Don't mess around with strongman just because other people around you are doing it. Or don't mess around with playing the guitar, but you always wanted to play the drums. Like, find your own thing. When you find your own thing, then it's going to be easy to be consistent with it. I think there's so many people that sell themselves short. I know that you guys have run into this, John, especially. I know your background where you had a gym and you actually trained a lot of individuals and stuff. And you see this time and time again, and you'll see a parent, a mom that's got, that wants to lose, 40, 50 pounds, something like that. She's overweight and she's tired of it. And they'll say, man, I don't have the dedication like you guys, or I don't have the dedication like this person. I don't have that inspiration, that motivation. And you're like, oh my God, like, get a hold of yourself here for a second, because from what I know of you, you're an amazing mother. I hear you all the time talking about bringing your kid to soccer practice. You're picking up your son from football. Like, you're all over. You're super mom. So in terms of dedication, you're one of the more dedicated people in these particular realms that I've ever seen. Okay, so what? You're not doing amazing with your food. You're not doing amazing with your workout routine, but maybe we can find some foods that you enjoy more that can keep your interest level better. And maybe, like, I don't know, I was trying some bodybuilding shit with you. Maybe you want to try powerlifting.
Some style of training that you actually enjoy. Once you enjoy what you're doing, you're not really working anymore, And I think that's kind of what you're saying, brother. Your interest level gets to the point where when a creature wants to do something versus when they feel like they have to do something, it's two completely different actions,
And you'll see it time and time again, and people get like tons and tons of admiration for it. And of course, you do have people like Kobe Bryant and people like Michael Jordan. There's stories of them, staying, there's stories of them showing up before the game, and there's stories of them hanging out after the game, win, lose, or draw. And they're still working on free throws. They're still working on their jump shot. But again, like, they're only doing so because they're interested in it. Like, this is their interest. They do not want to fail. They do not want to mess up. They don't want that same mistake to haunt them ever again. And I've seen this in powerlifting. I remember the great Chuck Vogelpool, a great powerlifter from Westside Barbell. He was just pacing back and forth and just looked angry as fuck one day. And I was like, I'm gonna just kind of observe, because I want to kind of see what he's doing. I want to learn from him, but I'm gonna stay the hell out of his way. And I was just a young kid at the time, so I'm like, I'm gonna be over here. So I'm watching him, and he's supersetting. He's doing some grip work, and he's doing some deadlifts where he's holding the weight at the top. And I'm like, I gotta know what he's doing. So when the time's right, I'm gonna ask him what the hell's going on, And so he gets done with his workout, and I see, okay, it looks like he's chill now. And I said, Chuck, I was like, what was it you were doing right there? He's like, the last meet. He's like, my deadlift came out of my hands. And he just looked at me. He goes, that is never going to happen to me ever again. And I was like,
yeah,
just thinking like, you're damn right. It's not going to happen when you train like that, when you put that effort in. So he wasn't forced by Louis Simmons to be there. And he wasn't doing something that he didn't want to do. He recognized this is a hole in my game. I lost the last competition this way, and this is unacceptable for me. This is my sport. This is what I love to do. And if I'm going to lose, maybe I'll lose some other way, but I'm not losing this way. I'm not losing because the weight fell out of my fingertips. And so he addressed it. And so I think people can probably start to think about the things that they do in their day to day. And are there things that you can do that are so easy that it otherwise just doesn't make any sense to do them? Like, for example, drinking more water. Like when you discover like, you know what, if I'm going to be exercising, I need to drink some water. Well, that's such an easy practice. There's no reason not to do it. Increasing your protein. Increase your protein a little bit when you start lifting some weights. You start to see some changes in your body and you notice that you grow. You also will recognize that your diet is a lot easier. When you have lean, good sources of protein, the diet fills in around that. There's another thing. There's another thing right there that's so easy to do. There's no reason not to do it. Something I promote all the time, and this gets you outside, gets you some sunlight as well, is to do some 10-minute walks. A couple of walks a day, 2 or 3 10-minute walks every day. Again, so simple to do. Can you sneak those in throughout the day and still be a busy person and get all your shit done? It's like, let's be reasonable. Yeah, of course you can figure it out. When you drop your kid off for volleyball, you do a little extra walk after you drop them off and get back in your car and go on your day. So like, what are the things that you can implement? I mean, I got some friends, they don't even really necessarily lift or have gym sessions anymore. But they're like, I just hit like 30 push-ups here and there throughout the day. I bang out some squats. I bang out some lunges. And when I have time, I hit the gym and I go like twice a week. And you're like, wait a second, but you're jacked. You look great. It's because they did put their time in at some other time.
Yeah.
But for now, kind of microdosing some sort of fitness or some sort of resistance training throughout their day and making it work with the current day they have nowadays.
Yeah. Recovery's better too. Only going a couple days a week, your recovery's on point. So if you go in and you put in the good quality time, you don't necessarily need a whole lot more. So it makes sense.
That's another huge point. Is I think that a lot of times with diet, people aren't giving themselves enough nutrient dense food. And in my opinion, I believe that most people need a more robust diet. They need to it sounds so stupid to say they need to eat more food.
Because a lot of people
a lot of people are doing a good job of crushing a lot of macronutrients, crushing a lot of calories, but the average American only has 12 or 13% protein.
Yeah, what is in the calorie? What is in the macronutrient? And even there's different levels of macronutrients. Not all proteins are created equal. Not all vegetable. I mean, you name it. It's a whole sliding scale. So to kind of summarize what you're talking about, brother, just to make sure listeners are following what you're saying, is you're saying that being, your success and being successful and having consistency is really centered around finding something that you enjoy doing. If your interest level is high enough, it's not difficult to continue to do it for a length of time on a consistent basis. That's kind of what you said up to this point, correct?
100%. And to simplify it even more, like fuck trying to win the day and fuck trying to win every day. That takes a lot of energy. That takes a lot of courage. Just don't lose. Just don't fucking lose. Have more good days than bad. There's 7 days in a week for a reason. And it's an odd number so that it's easier to have 4 good days than it is to have, have 4 good days and you had a good week. There's 30 or 31 days in a week. Just, work on having more good days than bad, and you had a good month, and so on and so forth. And then you have a good year, and it just continues. There's another side of this I haven't really mentioned quite yet, and that is reinterpretation, which is a much harder thing to do. reinterpretation takes a lot of skill and it takes a lot of training, just like any of the training that we're doing in the gym. And it might take you a few years to be able to learn to reinterpret stuff. So I'm talking good and bad. Well, what if you get yourself to a point where there is no bad anymore? And that's where I feel I am today. I feel like nothing's bad. My mom died 2 years ago, as of 2 days ago. And I don't look at any of that as being bad. My mom was a heavy woman. She was obese. She was suffering. She needed a way out. She was a big believer in God, and she was very religious. So in my head, God gave her a way out, and she's now at peace. My brother died 15 years ago. He was a professional wrestler, got himself caught up with drugs, was bipolar. Well, okay, yeah, that hurts. Like, I still cry about that. I still cry about my mother. I still think about these people. They're still in my phone. Like, I'm not deleting them from my phone because I think that one day maybe I'll be able to get in touch with them somehow. Who the fuck knows? So you're going to still have some irrational thoughts when it comes to these things, but you can reinterpret them. And the way I look at it now is like my brother says in the film Bigger, Stronger, Faster, he says, I know there's something inside my heart that I feel I need to share with the world. I don't know what the heck that was. I don't know exactly what he was talking about, but maybe he's not here any longer. And me and my brother Chris are still here, maybe to deliver that message. Maybe there's another Bigger, Stronger, Faster. Maybe there's bigger things for me to do still. Maybe there's still some really big shit on the horizon where I get out some of the things that my big brother taught me. My big brother, he taught me how to lift. He taught my brother Chris how to lift. So he's the one who kind of started a lot of this stuff in the first place. And by me being here, being able to deliver that message, the best thing I can do is to reinterpret their death as being something where, okay, what are the traits that they had? What are the traits that they had that maybe weren't so great? I'll dismiss some of those. And what are the traits that they had that are awesome? I'm going to have those traits live within me, and I'm going to carry those through so that their spirit can live onward. So you can kind of see, I mean, I know sometimes people are like, oh, well, you can't always have a good day and stuff like that. I think when you get to the point that I'm starting to get to, again, there are things that are bad. There's rape, there's kids that have cancer. Like, there's shit that's fucking bad. Yeah. And there's really no other way to talk about it. I understand that. So aside from a handful of disasters and major crisis, most other things, a text message from a person can be reinterpreted. A post that you made where somebody blew up at you and said you're a fucking juice head can be reinterpreted, and you can work on a lot of things. So those are the things I found really valuable last couple of years.
And brother, I'm telling you, that's so, I mean, I so agree. I mean, that's one of the things I've really been working on myself is, life happens for us, not to us. The things that happen in our lives are designed to help us become better versions of ourselves. And the challenges that we run against, the challenges that are hardest for us to get through, these are the ones that really make a difference in our own personal development and growth. So I love how you kind of explain that. It's so true. And, hopefully a lot of listeners will hear how you describe it and it'll make a lot of sense to them so they can adapt that same principle and theory. That's great, brother.
There's kind of an overarching theme. And it just goes like this. There's negative emotions can only come from one spot. They come from a negative interpretation. Negative emotion, you get spun up, you get pissed off, you get mad, you get sad. As men, like we're complicated. We get mad and we don't talk. And so oftentimes all it is like our feelings got hurt. But like none of us are gonna be like, hey babe, my feelings got hurt. You're not gonna say that to your girl, and you're certainly not gonna say that to your buddy. And really that's all that happened. And we just need a moment. But your reaction to the first thought that you have, it's good to pause on that for a minute because it's usually not a great response. You can think about some of this stuff a little bit like your training. Like if you guys just went in, especially when you were in the middle of your strongman careers, if you just went in and only went off of how you felt and only went based off emotions, it would have been very difficult for you to be a great lifter. You'd be a good lifter. You'd be able to produce some results. But if everything needed to be perfect every time you went in and did your job, which it was your job at a certain point, you wouldn't have been able to really do it. And you learn this as a professional, and you certainly learn it in a sport like pro wrestling. You might have heat with the other guy. You might be in argument with the other guy, and you got to still go out there and have a performance.
You got to perform and make sure that's put it all aside. You got to take all that, whatever's going on. It's time to be a professional,
and you have to do that in your day to day. You got to put that emotion, just put it on pause for a minute. Doesn't mean you can't feel it. Just means to reconsider it, give it some thought, and then maybe move forward from there.
And that's something a lot of people got to learn.
Hold on real quick, Nick. So I just gotta have one quick pause. When Tony Hughes was on the show, I actually had to take a piss really bad, and I had a bottle full enough that I could do it. That was empty enough I could under the table. My bottle's full, and I can't pee in this bottle when we continue this episode. So Ben, you're gonna have to cut this so I could go take a piss and come back real quick. Mark, I wish that I had an empty bottle so I could have pissed it for you and kept the episode going. My sincere apologies. Next time, I'll do a better job. 1 second.
That's John. He's got to go. He's got to go.
Nick, where are you living at?
Vegas.
You're in Vegas. Yeah, you've been out there for a long time. And I believe you have your own gym.
It's my garage. No, well, I mixed into somebody for a while, but now I'm just back in my garage.
Nice. How's everything going for you? I know you've been pushing the envelope with strongman for a long time. Are you still?
I'm getting ready for OSG. I'm getting ready for Masters World's Strongest Man. So still going, still doing it. It's been 26 years where I've squatted over 800 and totaled over 2,000. So I'm going for 30 years on that. So I'm not going to stop. But still
That's
going.
Amazing. When did you? Because it wasn't that long ago that you stopped doing the open, right?
I'm still doing some of the open stuff. I tore my lat off last May, a year ago May.
That is so
and
cool. I mean, not the torn lat, but the fact that you've been doing it for so long is incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah, the torn lat was kind of what slowed the open roll down. That's a pretty big injury to come back from.
Right. So I'm trying to get into the shape where I can come back and do a couple more open shows and then just pick a show and leave my shoes out there, So, I want to do it out in front of everybody when I say goodbye. So
is there anybody else? That's been
Felix?
I know Felix has been doing it forever.
Yeah. Felix and I are the two oldest still going.
He doesn't count though because he's black. He's got black genetics. Right? I mean, come on.
He counts because, man, he's still breaking his body. He's still putting the work in. He's still going after it. So he's the guy I got to compete against. He's my main competition at OSG at Masters because there's an over 50 Masters World's Strongest Man now. And we're going for that.
John, what's that like for you? Like seeing that these guys are still doing this shit. Now, you've been 10 years removed at least, right?
Yeah, and so I'm trying to think. My last strongman competition was, I think, 08, 07, somewhere in there, and I started to transition to wrestling so quickly. There's no question that it's, I ended up having jacking up my back pretty good when I was in my strongman career. So I was in one of those positions where my time was fairly limited. Ended up having a back surgery, and I was able to operate through wrestling and through bodybuilding. But having multiple ruptured discs in my lower back was going to be a tough one. Then realistically, looking back, it was probably the perfect time for me to exit because in came the younger generation of the giants, and I was already one of the undersized ones to begin with. That, it's funny to say 315, 310, I was undersized, but it was the fucking truth. There was it really, I got to go back and give my thanks to Mariusz Pudzianowski because he was the guy that created what they called the athletic era, which was moving and running and lifting, which created a space for me to exist in that high level, but it's looking at Nick still doing what he's doing. It's pretty nuts. I mean, I love to train. but squatting over 800 for 2 decades. Let's come on. I think that's got to be. I don't know if there's anybody else on the planet who's done that.
Well, I imagine you're probably still deadlifting over that amount too at this point.
Yeah, it's coming back now. It's coming back really good now. I'll pull over 800. I want to pull somewhere between 390 and 400 kilos next year at a powerlifting meet.
Right. Has your body been fairly healthy over the last couple of years? Or, I mean, you said a torn lat, but has there been like other shit going on?
The rest of me is not too bad. My hip bothers me from time to time. I really have to I have to work harder now on mobility than I do the strength. I put a good 12 weeks in and I'm strong as I've ever been. It's just getting the mobility and the full range of motion. Like getting down to the floor is difficult for me now, but I can still deadlift. So
we've had a couple guys come here to super training that actually like taught us like the floor is a great place to try to rest, so that might be something you might want to consider. If you can put some padding down, even just at your house, and try to get yourself on the floor can act a little bit like foam rolling in a way. Cause as we get older, it's so uncomfortable to be on the floor that it's like a giant foam roller.
Yeah.
I'll agree with that. I actually will sit on the foam roller and like play video games as I'm going back and forth on the foam roller. Just something to kill time while I'm doing it and take my mind off of where it hurts as I'm rolling through it. But
hey, really quick,
I get down a little bit.
To jump back to where we were, so we can have a cohesive episode here. Mark, you were just talking about how basically, being able to just be a professional and do what you got to do and handle, the things that are coming at you, whether it be a text or how, different things can be perceived and kind of replayed, refocused. Kind of go back into that. That was good stuff.
Yeah, you'll find most often in your life that when you give good thought to something, that it's most likely going to be more effective than if you just had emotion behind it. Sometimes, I mean, just the idea in your head of giving someone a hug or something like that, like those aren't really the things I'm talking about. I'm talking about more of the things that would be on the negative side, things that you, again, might interpret as being negative. I mean, the easiest thing with a text, and this is amazing. I think we forget, like we just accept texting as like a form of communication, but it's really poor. And so you want to try to level up your communication. And so if something starts to go sideways with a text, say, well, I know I'm seeing you later today, so let's discuss this more in person. And now you have to be willing to drop it right there, which is not easy to do, but that would be advisable because the likelihood you're going to get into like a fight or like this big argument in person is so low, especially as you get to be 35, 40, 45. I think it's most likely it's not going to escalate that way. Another way to improve your communication is to see if you can do this kind of thing where we can see each other. So this would be the next best thing to seeing each other in person. And voice notes and things like that are a way to communicate at least a little bit, but a text is a really bad one because
really easy to misinterpret.
Yeah, it's so easy to misinterpret and be like, and kind of think like, why is he talking to me that way today? Oh shit, maybe maybe he's having a bad day, but
Mark, we've actually had some texts where I was like doing something else, reading your text, and I responded to you, and then I went back and looked. I'm like, oh Jesus, I didn't read his text even close to correct, and what I said sounds really weird. And I even came back to hey buddy, I'm sorry about that. But I mean,
you've left me messages back and forth where you've had this like entire conversation with yourself. It's actually really good. I'm gonna save it. Yeah, I mean that's what happens, and we end up with miscommunication, and then we end up with our emotions and feelings going all over the place, ping ponging all around, and then you kind of think your week is more stressful than it was. We don't do a great job of like controlling some of these things. I think that sometimes we do a good job of, I'm going to work out every day from 8 a.m. till 10. And that's my time. And guys that get way into training, they guard that. That's important. And they won't look at their phone. They won't get thrown off their task. They're training with their buddies. They're training for something that's very specific. And then even like a doctor's appointment or a dentist appointment, like we keep a lot of those appointments, but a lot of times we distract ourselves and then we end up in places later than we wanted to. And because you're later than you wanted to be, there's stress dumped on top of that because you got to work late. Now you're behind. Now you're trying to catch up on emails. You got to some of the emails, but you had a meeting at work, and like it just keeps piling up. And then someone says, "How's your day?" When you see somebody out for lunch, and you say, "Oh man, Mondays are always fucking tough," and you have this kind of negative framing of everything. Yeah. And well, they are tough because now you're behind, and then you get home late. You're exhausted, like you're literally exhausted. You can't play with your kids, and the thing just snowballs on top of itself over and over and over. And then we're eating the wrong foods, consuming a lot of stuff, internet-wise, TV-wise, and so
this stuff just kind of going back to connect the dots. This kind of all falls in line with, it falls in line with what you're talking about. Obviously, keeping your interest level, so being consistent is easy. You're not really working, but then also you're talking about controlling the circuit. You're controlling your environment so it doesn't take you off course as well. That's kind of where we're going with this whole thing as well. Correct, brother?
Yes, I was hanging out with a fellow meathead in Stinson Beach one time, and this guy brought over 2 giant rotisserie chickens. He's like, "Hey, I don't know what kind of protein you're gonna have around here, so I brought these with me." And it's, of course, other than Jon Andersen, who's not going to get thrown off. Like, you don't want to be thrown off your task.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't know what the fuck Mark eats. He's really fat, so I'm going to bring my own.
To my surprise, he was actually cooking up chicken breasts. I was like, this is great. This is perfect.
So, I mean, those are just like, I mean, I know I'm trying to be like silly about it or whatever, but like, honestly, those are really important things that people need to protect and value. And who cares? Who cares about someone thinking that you're weird? Like, I am weird. I'm a little different. I'm fucking Jon Andersen. I'm 300 pounds and I'm shredded. Like, what do you expect? You expect me to not be walking around with two giant rotisserie chickens all the time? Like, this is the way it is when you're me, right?
Yeah. Well, brother, I'm telling you, I love the fact that because people see you. Obviously, you've done a whole lot in the fitness industry, but from a business perspective, you're a complete mogul now. For you to kind of break down some of this stuff so people can understand, some of the roots and the principles and the theories that you hold close that help you get where you want to go, I'm sure is being extremely helpful to our listeners. So what would you say to the listener that, which is really common, society kind of teaches us to go to high school, possibly go to college, get a job, get married, have kids. And all of a sudden life is kind of this place where they've lost themselves and they don't even have a clue where to start to find their interest. What would you say to that person?
It can sometimes be difficult to find your interest because of your upbringing, because maybe somebody didn't allow you to have like free enough thought to even get there. So that can be, from that perspective, that can be really challenging to try to find what you like. But I think, anybody can probably start to mess around and play with like what they like and what they don't like. I think there's a lot of people, like people are smarter than we give them credit for too. And I've noticed this in employees. Some employees, like, The Rock used to say, know your role and shut your mouth. With that statement, it's very derogatory, but I think it is important for people to know their role. Like sometimes some people are Scottie Pippen. They're not always Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're James Worthy and they're not always Magic Johnson. Like sometimes the other person needs to know, like, you're going to be the guy that gets the rebound and passes the ball to me to shoot it. Like, so you have to know in your day-to-day life, which person are you? Are you the guy that wants to take the game-winning shot? And if you are the guy that takes the game-winning shot, take a ton of stress off your plate by being somebody that is going to be protective of the things that you're interested in, to the point where you're meticulous enough with it to where you get to be really good at it, and to where other people start to recognize you as being great for it. Otherwise, know your role and get into that secondary position where you can still have an amazing life and still live and follow a lot of your passions. Maybe you can't follow all of your passions all the time, because you might need to fill something in with like a 9 to 5. You know, I always think that people can they can work on their day-to-day as they're also working on their fortune and working on their future. So like work on now, but also work on the future. So you might have to have a job that you really don't love. I think all of us have done stuff like that at some point. And we just recognize, like, this isn't me. Like, this doesn't work great for me. I need to have a different lifestyle that's going to allow me to enhance this other lifestyle that I want, because maybe we felt we were more of that leader position type of person. So you have to figure out what you are and how you kind of can fit into society. Once you figure that part out, I think it's easy then to start to follow what you're interested in, because even if you don't feel like you're innovative and you don't feel like you're a leader, but you love motorcycles, well, you can go and work at a motorcycle shop, or you can work for one of the guys that is one of the most creative people in the world. You show up with a camera and say, look, man, I just want to help, like, in any way I can. I've learned a lot about Instagram and social media. Okay, you don't need anybody now. Okay, I'm going to check in with somebody else. The degrees of separation that we have from people nowadays is next to nothing. Like, there used to be like 7 degrees of separation, they would say. I think there's like 2 or 1. Go on Instagram, slide into someone's DMs. And once you do that a couple times, somebody's going to be like, oh yeah, you want to work in the fitness industry? Great. Well, I can't hire anybody now, but are you down to move and you down to intern? And if you're that kind of person that just says, fuck it, and you go for it, you got a job probably. And not only do you have an internship, if you can successfully navigate that, you now have a job, and now you're in the thing that you're interested in. So
there we go.
It takes some work, but
there we go. There we go. That was beautifully said, brother. So easy to understand. I think that people that are in that place where they just feel like life is not filled with what really inspires them, what you just said is going to be really helpful. So that was really, really cool stuff, brother. Thank you very much. So I know you're a busy dude, so I don't want to keep you on here too long. Not to mention, I made this whole episode really kind of focused around your success in business, because I want to have you on for other episodes where we can talk about different sections, because you're way too complex of a person to cover everything in one show, and that's a huge compliment, by the way. But before, I got 2 questions before we let you go here, brother. So I guess the thing, if you had the ability, remember Back to the Future, the old DeLorean, if you had the ability to get in that baby and program the exact time and date, you could go back and you could give your young self, or potentially maybe not terribly young, just you could only give yourself somewhere in your life timeline one piece of advice. Tell us what you'd say to the younger version of yourself.
I've seen too many of these movies, where you can go back and
everything goes wrong afterwards.
Like what you just said, like, made me picture my daughter's like head disappearing. Like picture, like part of the picture started to disappear. So I'm like, no, don't say anything. I guess just honest advice. So I think there's a time in most people's lives, and this is myself, but like, I also think that it probably happens to a lot of men in general. I think the age is probably older now than it was, but I think somewhere between like 19 and like maybe 32 or 3 or even 4. And like I said, it might be a little older now just because things are different nowadays, is like a real wasteland. Like, you kind of don't know what to do with yourself. And I've always been grateful that I already liked lifting at that point, because it's like, well, what are you going to do? Well, I'm just going to keep lifting and fucking see what happens with that. I don't know. I love it. And that's when people would say, well, you can't just lift all your life. and I just kept lifting and lifting.
I was told the same thing, brother.
Yeah, I think we all were.
Yeah, like, well, I don't know, maybe why not? And then you keep lifting, and then you get older, and you're like, I've pretty much just been lifting my whole life. Like, they told me I couldn't do it, but this is kind of exactly what's been going on the entire time. So I think, you know, being a free thinker and allowing yourself to have the freedom to be creative and to make your own path, your own way. You know, they talk about, you know, don't put the cart before the horse. Well, I think in this case, I think why not be the horse? You know, why not be the reliable person that can shoulder the weight and carry shit through and follow through on things the way that you want to do? I think you could build yourself into these things. And I guess what I would say to my former self, or to any young man that is trying to like make their mark, so to speak, I would say, you know, you have the same, it's important that people understand you got the same brain makeup of Albert Einstein. You got the same brain chemistry of Jeff Bezos. You got the same brain chemistry, maybe not the same chemistry exactly, but you have the same brain. It's not like we've discovered that Elon Musk and Albert Einstein and some of these people that we put up on a pedestal, it's not like we found out that they have like this extra thing going on. Maybe they have like particular hormones going in a certain direction, or maybe there's some sort of things that have allowed them to do some of the things that they can do. But how amazing is that there's no evidence that points to the fact that any one of us wouldn't be able to retain similar information, learn similar information, retrieve similar information, have a similar amount of memory as some of these other people that have been around. So if you learn that at the age of 18 or 20 or something like that, I think that can be really empowering. When it comes to physicality, there's definitely some differences. And when it comes to genetics and things like that, there's definitely some differences. Like, you know, you might be 5'5" and you've always wanted to be 7 foot. It's like, there's not shit you can really do about that. But everything else, everything outside of like the physical prowess, which can be worked on a ton. We know a lot about that, right? Everything outside of that is all stuff that is solvable and knowable. Like there's no limit on what you can learn and know. There's no limit on how much you can learn, know, love, experience happiness. Like you got friends that like, for whatever reason, every time you see this guy, he's fucking laughing his ass off. He's super happy. And you're like, I don't know what the deal is with this guy, but you can be that guy, or the guy that, you know, that's got money coming out of his ears. You could potentially be that guy, the guy that's, you know, got tons of muscle, the guy who's shredded. You can aspire to be these things. These things are there. The only thing that's miraculous about any of them is steroids. No, the only thing that's miraculous about any of them is the ability to stick to it over like a long ass period of time. And
yeah, beautifully said, brother. Beautifully said. I'll tell you, this is you know, the whole Meathead Millionaire. We're gonna have to rename you. You're like the Meathead, you know, intellect. You know,
Mark, the Meathead Millionaire.
The millionaire is just kind of like a distant side effect. It's because, you know, now it's like there's like a Dr. Phil of the strength world. Well, one more question, brother. This has been great. I got to tell you, this has been. I'm inspired myself. I mean, some of the things you're saying are so true.
You need to get off your fat ass.
What's that?
You need to get off your fat and get moving.
You know, and it's also when you hear stuff like this from someone that you know, sometimes it's much different than hearing it from someone that you don't know. So I know this is going to impact a lot of people, brother. But the last question we have for you before we cut you loose is, brother, you had such a huge impact on, you know, not only the fitness industry, powerlifting, all of your business stuff. You've touched a lot of people, and you've made a huge difference already. And you're going to make a huge difference moving forward. And I got a feeling it's going to be even a much bigger quantum leap. But when it's all over, what does Mark Bell's legacy look like? What do you want your legacy? What do you want to be remembered for?
That ain't for me to determine. That's just that's for the people. So I don't have anything to say. I have no comment.
Okay. Well, I got to tell you, brother, of all the shows we've done, that's the first no comment answer. But that's it. That's deep in its own way, not for you to determine. Yeah. Very cool. Well, brother, thank you so much for your time. I know you're a busy guy. So, and the fact that I'm keeping this one short, hopefully going to give some leverage to get you back on to talk about some of your athletic ventures and other things as well. Because you're such a, you're one of those guys that really multi-dimensional, and this whole episode was just talking about your business and your methodologies for success, which I know is going to be really, really impactful for our listeners. So thank you very much. That being said, again, thank you for coming on the show. Nick, do you have anything for Mark before we cut on out of here?
Yeah, thanks, Mark, for coming on. And I have a ton of things I still want to ask you and go through with you on, because some of the things I've seen you do, from squatting 1,000 pounds and being a massive monster to now just lean, ripped, and looking phenomenal. I just want to talk and go over that. So I'm looking forward to if we can get you on again.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll come on the show again and talk all about that stuff. Yeah, that'd be great.
That'd be great. And I'm also really, really happy that it's been put in the open. I'm not the only one on the planet that thought about something weightlifting related during sex. So thank you for taking me off the hook mentally, brother. That really, I'm gonna sleep so much better from now on,
This angle right here really works the glute hamstring tie-in. I wonder if anybody else ever thought about it.
Well, there you have it, everyone. There's another edition of Legends of Iron. We had a great show. If Mark Bell didn't inspire you to become a better version of yourself, I don't know who the hell is going to do it, because I'm sitting here with some goosebumps just with some of the things that he said, and I've known this man for a long time. So again, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We will see you next time. Legends of Iron is brought to you by MuscleMeds. It's time to stop around. You want to build some muscle? You want to build some serious muscle? Well, guess what? Beef builds muscle. RTD, carnivore, ready to drink, lactose free, tastes great. You want to build some muscle? You better start eating some beef. Beef up with carnivore RTD. 40 grams of protein, 0 fat, 0 sugar, 0 lactose. What the are you waiting for? Get yours today.